our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But it's Tuesday, which means we're TVing today.
Yes.
And it means that we are four friends.
Four best friends.
Because we have a very special episode where we are joined by Adrian M. Gibson and MJ Kuhn of SFF Addicts. Welcome to the podcast.
Back.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Awesome to
Two
be here.
two besties plus two besties equals four besties. And
Four
Are the
besties.
four best friends
Mathing.
that anyone could.
Mathing. Yeah, you're here for the math, people.
And we've had MJ and Adrian on to
Yes.
discuss their books.
They
But-
are both wonderful authors.
Love their
Aw,
books so
thanks.
much. But today we are talking about Fallout, a Prime Video TV show that is based on a role-playing video game of the same name created by Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky. This is an 8-episode first season that premiered April 10th, 2024. And no shock, there is a season 2 already confirmed because this is a pretty great TV show.
Yeah,
Ah.
people are obsessed with it, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of those rare cases, and we're gonna get into it, where it's like, video game adaptation? Question mark. And then it's like,
Video
oh,
game adaptation that actually went well.
actually
What?
really, really good. Yeah.
Well,
Honestly, my
also-
two favorite shows this year were video game adaptations, so I think I just really like them.
What was the second
Or
one?
they're just getting better.
The Last of Us. I love that
Oh,
show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe they are just getting better because
I
that
feel-
was good too.
They're
feel
learning
like-
their lessons. They're learning their lessons. of, like-
Finally.
But they're also two very different shows because The Last of
Yeah.
Us was kind of a straightforward, like, oh, this
Straight
is what
up
happens
adaptation.
in the game.
Adaptation.
Yeah,
Whereas this
and-
is more of like an inspired by in the world of kind of.
Yeah. In a different timeline, which I heard some people who played the video games were a little bit confused by at first, where they were like, this isn't what the timeline looks like. And then they figured out like kind of what was going on and what they had shifted. It also sounds like some of the video games they did, and then they were like, those aren't canon. So they changed their mind.
Yeah.
They
I
pulled
think,
the
like,
Star Wars. Got it.
Yeah.
Like the video game studio actually released like an official timeline that fits in the TV show. Just be like,
It's cool.
just all you know, we're gonna clarify some shit. So like, calm down.
Calm down.
please.
So this depicts the great aftermath of the Great War of 2077 in kind of a different world than our world.
Yeah, it's like a reimagined history.
So something about me is I do not pay attention to details very often. I'm usually there for vibes and like character building.
Mhm.
And so it never occurred to me that this was like the beginning of the episode, episode 1, that they're in 2077. I'm like, oh, they're in the 50s. And I never did the math. Like I never
Right.
was like, hey, the math isn't mathing until I was watching a reaction and they're like, yeah, this is like set in the future. And I was like, oh, it is. Oh yeah, totally. I knew that. So-
Like, oh yeah, I'm with it.
Since I've
yeah.
played the video games, I can give a bit of context in this
Okay.
case.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it is like retro futurism,
Mhm.
kind of on like a similar wavelength to the Jetsons, which is like that retro futurism that like leans really heavily into a very specific time period. In this case, it's like 1950s America.
Mhm.
Even though the bombs dropped technically in like the 21st century, there was still just kind of like a progression of that 1950s vibe with like the cars and the architecture and the design aesthetics and the music. Like the soundtrack in the games and in the show is so good because they're just pulling from classic like 40s and 50s music of our real world. But then the show, I'm pretty sure it's like the bombs drop in the 21st century, but then it's like 200 years later is when
Yes.
the show takes place, and when all like the video games take place in like the 23rd century, basically.
And guys, for people listening, this is spoiler filled because
Full
I'm about
spoilers.
We forgot
Uh,
to say we said before
what I
we
just
started,
said,
we were gonna
what
say
I
it.
just said is like the least
No.
spoilery thing.
That is
about
Yeah,
this
that's-
whole
because-
You can
stuff.
find that on Wikipedia in the first
Exactly.
two sentences.
Exactly.
I only said that because I also like a lot of the show has a lot of mystery going on, a lot of like what's going
Mhm.
on, who's doing what, who's pulling the strings type feeling.
Mhm.
And for a long time, like I kept going back and forth where I was like, have 200 years passed? Are we going to find out that it's only been like 10 years and they're just lying to everyone?
I was like
Right.
wondering that too for a bit because especially with which I don't know, maybe I'm like going way out of order with what we're going to talk about here.
Oh no.
But with our like main guy, which okay, we talked off air. Sorry, listeners, I am shit with names. Can I
Okay,
swear on
who's
here?
Yes, swear
Absolutely.
away.
who's main
I
guy?
just did.
Okay. Who's main
Main guy,
guy?
the guy with no nose, the ghoul.
The
The
ghoul.
Is he just
Ghoul.
known as the
Yeah.
ghoul?
Cooper
But
Howard.
the
Yeah.
Cooper Howard, yeah, because like him, and then the fact that he's like still alive, but he is the ghoul, and like as a person who has not yet played the games,
Do you want me
I
to
was
tell you
like,
like how the ghouls function?
can he live forever? Well,
Yes.
he's like a
Yeah.
zombie, right?
So
I mean,
just
like,
for
Yeah.
like,
So basically like
could we
the-
just
things.
really quickly? Adrian is the only one that has played any of the Fallout games, right? The rest of us have just watched the show.
Just the
Yes.
show for me so far. Yeah.
Just the show.
I'm gonna
Okay.
play the games, but not yet.
So Adrian, provide us a little context on ghouls.
So the ghouls is basically like they can live indefinitely. So it's basically like this Cooper Howard character. There are flashbacks in the show, which we can get into later, but he was there when the bombs dropped in the 21st century, and he is basically like an irradiated ghoul 200 years later. And the ghouls survive basically on this like serum that they have to inject into themselves. Or in the show, I think it's almost like a
It's almost like an
like
inhaler.
an inhaler.
Yeah.
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 So it's basically like this compound that keeps the human part of them alive. But there are also feral ghouls, which are shown in the TV show in like a really cool like supermarket scene, which is really
yeah.
that was one of my
Yeah.
favorites. The feral ghouls are basically like ghouls who have stopped taking this compound, and basically they have converted their human side has just like completely gone away and converted into like a feral animal state. And so those are like typically the enemies in the game, but then you also come across characters who are like humans essentially with like human level intelligence and sort of like emotion and stuff like that, but then in this like fucked up ghoul body.
Well, and
It's also interesting how they're portrayed though in the show, because I feel like it's almost like a accessibility thing too, that some of the ghouls that become feral, it's depicted almost as like they didn't have access to
Yeah.
these
Mhm.
vials.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so just like their economic or like social standing, they're not able to access these things. So unfortunately they become feral. And I found that like really like well done. I don't, because obviously those things happen in real life, that people aren't privileged enough to have access to certain things. So
Yeah.
I thought it was neat to depict even these characters that are seen as really evil and scary also have to undergo these challenges in order to just survive and be treated somewhat better than the rest of their cohorts.
So I
Yeah.
think that's really helpful context for this to kind of give a lowdown. I also will say that like the TV show follows like three primary main characters. We have Lucy, who is a vaulter. These are people who live in vaults who have like they have some recollection that there are people on the surface, but they may not know exactly like what type of development these people have up on the surface. They don't really have that type of knowledge. A lot of them, especially in Lucy's case, believe that they are in the vaults to repopulate the earth at some point. So they're living there until it's safe to go up and build a new republic.
There's almost like a mythology going
Mhm.
both ways, like a mythology of like the vault dwellers and what exists on the surface versus the surface dwellers and what they perceive. Obviously there's a lot of judgment of like these fucking vault dwellers, these privileged little twerps. Like
And Lucy
I love,
goes
To
to
be
the
fair,
town
the
of
vaults
Philly,
are
and
so-
that lady laughs at her.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved that moment.
Oh my god, but the vaults are so culty too.
Yeah.
Like, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
100%.
All different culty in their own little way, but
Yeah.
like they're so
It's like corporate cults.
It is
Yes.
very
that's
much
why, like,
corporate cults.
anyone that I'm like recommending this show to, like if they haven't played the games especially, like I am telling them to watch the first 2 episodes
Mm.
because after the first one, I wasn't sold. I mean, I was just I was interested and I did watch the second one, but after the first one, I was just kind of like, that was fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like that was just like a weird, like, what is happening kind of vibe. And then
Yeah,
the second one was when I was like, okay, I'm in.
So
All
I
right.
know
MJ,
that-
is it from a context of like there's just like too much like exposition, or there's too much going on that you didn't really know what was happening or like who's who?
I felt like it was
What
not
was it?
enough going on in the first
Okay.
episode for me. Like it was just like, not that it's not enough going on. Like a lot happens, obviously, but it was just more like Okay, I'm gonna draw a parallel right now to a show that I also wasn't won over on episode 1, but ended up loving, which is WandaVision. It reminded me very much of that, where it was like the first episode just felt very like kitschy almost,
Mm-hmm.
and I was this kind of felt the same way to me. Where after the first episode, I was like, okay,
I will say
I'm
that
trusting in the recommendations.
I understand where you're coming from, and I honestly think it's because we don't get any of the flashbacks or the development of character that we get throughout the other episodes, because the other
Yes.
episodes are so deep, because we
Mhm.
get these backstories of the characters and the flashbacks and kind of like a little bit of character and world building through these flashbacks that really helps to set the scene and connect you to the characters. And the
Right.
first episode is very much just like, here's this one, here's this one, here's this one. We're digging up this guy, and this happened. He shot this one. This one's gone. So it's a lot to take in.
It is like, I feel like we've gotten away from pilots. I famously was very poor and I went to law school, so I downloaded a lot of free iTunes pilot episodes and would
Right.
watch them on the train when I was really bored. And we've kind of gotten away from the pilot because people have to be able to sell you on an entire show. So a lot of times they're dumping you right in, and there's a lot of like quick. But this show felt a lot like the first episode was a pilot that changed a lot in the second episode, because I noticed, like, we find out Lucy is from Vault 33, or and she's trying to
33,
marry
yep.
yes, and she's trying to marry someone from Vault 32. And then we switch over to this other character, Maximus, and I noticed that there was a 1 on the building, and I was like, oh, he's like technically Vault 1, and it's like outdoors and it's going to be different, and like they're all going to be different things. And I was like, got it, I totally know what's going on. And then the next episode I was like, so that was not what was going on at
So you're
all.
like, wait,
why?
never mind, what's happening?
Right,
Why was that number on there?
But that's what I mean. It's kind of like, I agree with you about like the pilot thing. Like, people don't like, production companies don't do pilots very much anymore. Usually what they'll do is like, here's 2 episodes for the premiere.
Yep.
Because it takes 2 fucking episodes to get into like whatever they want to get you into.
And then it's like you're watching a movie.
The streaming culture. Yeah, it's like the streaming culture where it's like, oh, we have all 10 episodes or all 8 episodes available now, in which case like we know you'll just continue. Like who cares anymore? But in the case of this, like, from my experiences with the games, it's like so much of the video games start out, just because they're RPGs, there's a necessity for sort of like setting the stage at the beginning. And usually what happens is they'll set the stage in a vault, because that's like the ideal environment for you to create your character, because there's like customizable character creation. You know, pick like your perks, pick your, you know, class and all this kind of stuff. Learn the environment, learn the controls, all this kind of thing. So for me, it felt kind of analogous to one of the video games where it's like, it's introducing you to the vault. But I feel like the show didn't really do a good job of, at the beginning, later on it gets better, explaining the different factions about like, here's a vault, here's why it exists. Here's the Brotherhood of Steel, here's why they exist. Here is a ghoul, this is what ghouls are about. It's kind of just like, oh, they're digging this guy up, and then there's like some very, you know, Western kind of vibe, like a Western standoff kind of thing, but you're like, who's that guy? Who are they?
Who's that hottie?
Why did they dig him up? Who's that like desiccated hottie?
I'm all team ghoul.
Yeah, but there, for me, it's like I knew the context, but I can understand for anyone who's not familiar with the video games to be like, okay, even in MJ's case where it's like there's not enough going on, but I also think there's not enough explanation going on at the beginning.
I completely agree with that, because I do think it's really hard to especially like connect with what's going on in the plot, because you don't necessarily have the context as like, who are the good people, who are the bad people. And they do a great job as we go along throughout building this up and showing us these things, but you have to get all the way to the finale to kind of come to the conclusion of what's going on, because you're just given little breadcrumbs. And it is kind of difficult, because I know we get to a point later on in the season and we learn more about like why the vaults exist, which is this is a huge spoiler, but that they're basically just experiments that are being done in each separate vault. And my husband was watching that episode where we find out that there's just like this major experiment happening in this one vault that Maximus and Lucy go to visit, he's like, oh my gosh, this is happening in all of them. And it's like, wow, it took like 6 episodes for this revelation.
Yeah.
So I do think as you go along, it does come together, but starting out, it's difficult to figure out.
I do
Yeah.
think they were helped by some of the more like absurdist. So I know Laura did the show notes, so thank you, Laura. But she noted that the creators were Graham Wagner, who was in who did Portlandia and Silicon Valley, and there is like a lot of
that sarcastic satire
Yeah.
is just
Mhm.
like seeping through.
So like in the first episode, a lot of people have been sharing the clip where like Lucy talks about like, well, you know, the only hot people are your cousins, and like, yeah, they're fine for fooling around, but you can't repopulate the earth with them.
Right. Yeah.
My fiance kept like laughing at the line where she walks up to her cousin and he's like, I'm in love with you, and she goes, we all know, Chet. And he like kept walking around.
And his name is Chet as
Yeah.
well.
And my fiance kept walking around and going,
Chet.
we know Chet. Like,
We know Chet.
But that feels like Portlandia humor.
It does.
That feels like Fred Armisen kind of like
And
delivery.
also, like in the last episode, brain of Bud Askins being like, "Come over here so I can stab you."
Yeah.
This-
It's so good.
He's on a
But that-
Roomba.
But honestly, like for me, I will say that is probably like since this show takes place in the same world, but doesn't directly mirror or adapt any of the video games. At least not this season. Like
Yeah.
next season is going to take place in New Vegas, which is one of the video games. But that was probably the best decision they could have made, because they were able to create new characters and create new situations and experiences that gave them the freedom to kind of like let the writers and let the actors kind of bring their own sort of like personality into it. But the thing that is analogous, which is so important for me, is the humor. Like the satire is so spot on in terms of like how it's portrayed in the video games, and these like small situations where it's like you'll go on these little side missions and just like stumble across the weirdest fucking people, you know, or like just like absolute absurdism.
Like the
all the
man
time.
committing bestiality with the chickens,
Yeah.
like early
Yeah.
on. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
But that
What
is
is
exactly the,
happening?
How bothersome.
that is exactly the kind of thing that you will stumble across in the wasteland in any of the video games. And they just translated that so perfectly. But the
Yeah, and they
actors
just like
the
throw it
writers-
away too. It's like something horrific that you find out, and it's just
Yeah.
like, no, now it's done.
Like, no,
Exactly.
This is just what life is like on the wasteland. Yeah, well, that's I
Right.
think why the video game adaptation works well. And I know we just talked about The Last of Us, which is more of like a one-to-one following the plot, which I stand corrected, because I said for years that could not be. I did not believe that could be satisfactorily done, because it's like taking away an element, right? Like you would get to experience the same story, but like
Right.
you used to be able to participate and now you can't. Like I didn't think it could be done, but
those
clearly I'm
games
wrong.
are very, very cinematic too.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like you've already experienced the cinematic experience,
Right.
but you got to play a part of it. So I did
Whereas
not think that could be
Fallout
done.
is like, because it's an RPG, it's so individualistic in terms
Well,
of
and
like
that's
how
exactly
you
the-
personally relate to the series.
Yes. Well, and I think
this
that's
isn't like anything
a-
that you've experienced before, but it's in
Right.
a world that you're familiar with.
right. Well, and as I said, that's what I said for a long time too, would be the best way to do it. When I was talking about it specifically, I was on a podcast that was specific to Legend of Zelda. And I was talking if you wanted to adapt, which I guess they are adapting
Yeah,
Zelda,
apparently, I guess.
theoretically.
Is it
maybe,
live
like,
action
keep
or is
talking
it an
about it.
anime?
It's live action,
Yeah.
but I
I
haven't
feel like
heard
Zelda
anything about
has
it
to
in a
be
while.
anime. Like, why would you do a live action Zelda?
Well, but here's the thing. I always said that if you wanted to adapt Legend of Zelda, you would have to do a story of like an age without a hero, right? You could write a story in Hyrule, but Link can't be in it, was my
Right.
thought for how. And so this is kind of basically what they've done
Link
with
could have
Fallout,
like
right?
a cameo.
Maybe like at the end, right? He
Or
wakes
he's
up
just
or
like,
whatever.
yeah.
But it's like it couldn't be about Link, right? In
Right.
my mind, obviously,
Yeah.
like I'm sure our listeners will disagree. A lot of them will, and that's fine. But this kind of what Fallout has done here, right? Is they've taken the show, the world, the vibe, the energy, the humor, and they've just done a companion story, a different story
Mhm.
set within that. So I think that's like a
And
crowd
hopefully the
pleaser.
Fallout fans are a little
approach.
more like forgiving of that type of scenario, because obviously Star Wars fans are not, where they're like,
Yeah.
we have to have everything related
Star
to Luke
Wars fans are the
Skywalker.
most
But the thing is,
toxic
Laura, it's like,
fandom in the world.
with
so.
Fallout, because you're like a player character, but you're kind of like, you never speak in the games. You're kind of like you're just an avatar for the player.
Okay.
I feel like it's so much easier because in Fallout, for me, like the main character is the world, and it's a
Yeah.
lot easier for people to latch on to the intricacies of the world and the lore and everything that's going on, and sort of like the factions and the weird fucked up mutant creatures and all the fun crazy stuff that you stumble across, that the character themselves, like, it's not Link, because you don't have this deep association with, you know, Link as like this fundamental pillar of any of the Zelda games. You don't have Luke Skywalker or like any of his fucking Skywalker spawn as like the core of Star Wars. In which case, for me, it's like the best Star Wars stories lately have not involved the Skywalkers.
Yeah, they're the ones
all.
that don't. I know. Well, that's okay. We'll get off track if I get on that.
This is not about Star Wars.
I was
but-
gonna say last
We
thing
can't
on,
have this episode review bombed.
last thing
Yeah.
on Zelda live action. If they do have Link, I just want everyone to be so much taller than him that it's ridiculous, because that's what happens in the game, and I want everyone to shame him for it. Because, like, Laura, you've never played Zelda, but anytime you talk to someone, they're like, "Well, hello, little hero," and they'll just like treat him ridiculously.
They're like very, in a very chill way, like quite belittling.
Yeah. To this like great bastion of heroic
Yeah.
likeness and stuff. So but yeah, getting back to Fallout. So we have Lucy, we have Maximus, who is part of this Brotherhood of Steel, which is like, I looked at timelines and more background information because, like Adrian said, I feel like they don't do quite an effective job at like telling you what they are. They're kind of like an offshoot of what used to be the military.
They're
And
like religious military zealots.
yeah,
Is kind of what
they're
they
the
are.
white cloaks, Laura.
Yeah. Which they say they're like acquiring artifacts and preserving history, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of ammo being used for that, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah, you guys came up
But
with
that's
some
none of
cool,
my
like,
business.
yeah, you came up with like some cool, like some big ass armored suits and stuff
Yeah.
to achieve this purpose.
And Maximus is kind of like a lowly army person who
Yeah,
then
he becomes a squire.
he becomes a squire, where he's supposed to just be helping this person who is in a giant suit called a knight. And Maximus has like a lot of ideas of grandeur in his head, and he's just kind of a bumbling dum-dum is kind of how I looked at him
He's
a
so
lot
sweet
of the time.
though.
I was
know.
gonna say a lovable bumbling dum dum,
sweet
except
Yeah.
for when he's committing murder. But that's
Yeah,
fine.
except when he's like being the darkest
can-
person in the world,
yes.
and you're just like,
He
oh, like,
Can be quite vicious.
But that is like exactly the dark humor of this series, though, and it like fits perfectly. Where he's like, tra la la, oh fuck, oh shit, what did I just? Okay, I just killed somebody, and then it's like, you know, it's like the moral twisting of every individual, and you see it with Lucy too, because she comes from the vault and she's naive as shit,
yeah.
but then
And she's
starts to
chopping
become-
off a head by episode 2.
Exactly. She is like going through these moral quandaries that make this scenario interesting.
Yeah.
The show does a really good job endearing you to both of these characters, even though they are committing bad acts still. And
Well, she
Found
cut off
it-
the head at the request of the man whose
that's
head
I
got
mean
cut
that's
off.
true.
I mean, he was gonna
but-
die anyway. He was dead
Yeah.
when it happened, but
That's true.
But still, I don't know if I could do that. Are you like
No.
physically like?
If I was living in the wasteland, like, you do what you gotta do, man.
So my
she's not
husband is a
from the
mechanic.
wasteland. She's from a tiny cult from the 50s, basically. Come on, man.
Well, she ended up in the wasteland.
She's got some grit to her.
Yeah, she's got some.
So my
cult grit.
husband is a mechanic, and in that episode where she has to like use the tool to chop off his head, he's
Yeah.
like, "That's not gonna do it. She needs something stronger." I'm like, "This is the piece of the show that you call out on not being realistic."
That's
But, yo,
honestly,
Laura, that is
I
exactly
thought the
that is
same
exactly.
suspense of disbelief.
But
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what readers do. Like, who were we talking to recently about? We were talking to Christopher Buhlman on the podcast, and he was like, one of the books that he submitted had guns in it. It was like, I think one of his vampire books had
Oh,
guns
yeah.
in it, and his editor was like, you got to get this gun shit right. because the gun people, if you get it wrong, they're gonna come at you.
Right. The gun
you know?
people will know.
The gun
Yes.
people will know, but it's just like these are
Funny.
the weird little details that
Right.
someone
This book
like,
has vampires in it, but if you get
Yeah.
the guns wrong, that's what's
Exactly.
gonna
Right.
Honestly,
but in your
we're-
husband's case, like
that's
that's the thing he latched onto because that's part of his like real life experience, so he understands. And he's
Honestly-
like, you can't cut a head off with that. Like,
We are currently reading the Dresden Files, and I've never been angrier than reading about a 6-car garage in the Gold Coast, where I was like, you don't have 6-car garages in the Gold Coast. What are you talking about?
Get it
And
right,
it's-
Jim.
Yeah, like, have you ever been to Chicago? And it's like, well, he is writing about vampires, so
Yeah.
maybe this
There's
is an alternate
loop-garoos, but
Vampires
and
garages
ghosts
need
and-
to
and
be
werewolves.
accurate.
That is like the
Uh,
most. I love when you get Midwest, Laura. Garages have to be accurate. You
Midwest
can't
life.
fit 6 cars in there. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, excuse you.
Think you're so fancy with your books down there.
I
Fancy
maintain
boy
that
down
Jim
in
Butcher and I
Ecuador.
are alike in that we likely have been to Chicago the same amount of times, just like on some school trips and stuff. We just use that for our knowledge of Chicago.
There you go.
Perfect.
Passing through.
But yeah, Maximus, I think, is a character that really is endearing to viewers, that you kind of root for him. You feel bad because he's bullied, he's treated poorly by Knight Titus, and then you see these moments come out in him where he wants revenge for what has happened to him, and it gets pretty sinister. And then the music that they play, usually with the Brotherhood theme and surrounding Titus, it makes it quite dark.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of like 80s movies where someone gets like severely bullied and then like Revenge of the Nerds kind of thing, you know? And it's
Harry
like,
or something
yeah,
like that.
and it's like Maximus, like so many times when I was watching him, I'm like, you're such a mouth breather. Like he just like he just gets into all these situations where he just like, oh, like
Well-
doesn't know what the fuck is going on. And then like you're saying, like he's bumbling through stuff all the time. But then it's like, unlike 80s movies where obviously they're not going to be like rated R or anything like that, he ends up in situations where he realizes the potential for darkness and he goes for it. And I
He
think that
always
makes his
goes for
charac-
advancement.
I think that makes his character so much more interesting than he could have otherwise been.
I really liked his character a lot just because he is very bumbling. He's someone who like he thinks he has main character energy, and
Yeah.
every time I'm like, no, you do not. You do not have main
Yes.
character energy.
Oh my
You
God.
trying
really
so
are
hard,
fighting
though.
for it though. Yeah. And then there's the moment where they do go to a different vault 4. And he kind of has this moment of like, oh my gosh, I've been fighting my whole life. And like, I could have just been eating caviar, which someone pointed out online. They're like, so they were doing experiments on people with fish. So what was that caviar, if you really think about it? And, so, but he has like a moment where he's like so calm and so relaxed, and he's like, wow, this is nice. And
He
Lucy's
like
like,
takes a hot shower for the first time.
yeah.
But they gave me a robe. and
Yeah.
slippers.
Yeah. I'm not in like some
How could
sweaty
they be
ass power
mean?
armor. God, that power armor
Yeah.
must stink like shit.
Oh
Like it
God.
must be
And
so gross.
he's not being mistreated. And at first he's like, this is definitely a cult. And it is a cult. But then he's like,
Mhm.
but is that so bad if you
But
hate
but the thing
creature
is,
comforts?
he came from a cult. The Brotherhood of
Yeah.
Steel is a cult, and he went from one cult to another. But this one was way
Mhm.
more comfortable and wasn't like nobody's
It was like a nice cult, the friendly
belittling him
cult.
and beating the shit out of him and everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were an accepting cult. They really just wanted to like vibe with each other and have a nice time. Like, and again, the absurdist humor where they banish Lucy and they're like, you are going to be banished to the outer world. And she's like, that's it. And they're like,
With 2-week provisions.
2 weeks of
Yeah.
provisions.
Yeah.
You
who's
do not
the-
have to carry the provisions out to the surface with you. We'll get
Who's
someone to do
the-
that.
Who's the leader of the vault? The guy with like one
Chris
eye.
Parnell.
Chris
He
Barnes.
From
is
SNL.
so
so
good.
funny.
His delivery is just like unbelievable. Where I'm like, he's like been Lucy like beat him up and everything like that. and it's
Goosey,
like,
you mean?
Goosey.
Goosey. But the conversations
That's
with him
Goosey.
are just so funny because they're just like rife with satire and irony. And then it's just like, yeah, we're gonna banish you, and she thinks she's gonna be like just killed or
Murdered. Yeah.
sacrificed or something, and they're just like, yeah, like go back to the surface, and here's everything you need to take care of yourself.
Which
Here's
is
a
where you wanted to
backpack.
go anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been fighting. And then
Oh
she's
my
like, well,
God.
could my friend stay? Because he really likes it here. And like, there's just, I really thought the Vault
And
4
he's like
was.
stealing their energy as she's fighting for him to stay. It's so funny.
And all the lights
Oh,
go
God.
off. Well, and I think that was a really good moment in the season because I really liked it for Lucy's character. Because throughout it, she just seems to be like this, like, I'm just going to find my dad and I'm the hero of this story. And in that episode, she's like, I punched an innocent man, and it was just
No,
people
she
who were
threw
trying.
acid in the
Yeah,
face of an
she
innocent
was-
man.
yeah, I threw acid in the face of an innocent man, and she just has this moment where she comes to terms with like, maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I've just been going on this course thinking I'm better than everyone else, and I'm
Right.
not.
But that's kind of like calls back to when she first comes out of the
That's
vault.
one of like a few moments for her.
Yeah, like when she comes out of the vault and that person, you know, you're a stupid, dumb vault dweller.
Vaulty. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like her naivete, that's the moment where it's like broken down. And then everything else after that is more like she has more agency and she's taking things into her own hands.
Well, the guy who would like, where he's like, if you have water, you drink it all. That's just what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy, that like the guy who has like his like weird little farm and
Mhm.
stuff. And he's got like the really like, I don't know, he's got that like underwear that's basically like rolled up like shirt or some shit. And
And
they
he's
show,
like,
like, some
stay
ass
here
shots.
and be my bride.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
she's
won't
like-
live very long.
But those are the moments where it's like, those are like the callbacks to the video games that I enjoyed so much. But they're also good character moments. Like it's a good moment to kind of like bring levity to the situation, and it's also kind of like playing into the absurdity of that someone exists like this, and it's like, dude, you're like living off of fucking nothing, but then this beautiful vault dweller just appears on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Of course you're gonna be like, marry me.
Yeah.
know?
And
But
He had to shoot a shot, all right? Come on.
yeah,
Exactly,
like there's
but the
no
way
harm
that-
in it.
but the way that Lucy reacts to it is great, because there's also like the moment on the bridge where she's with the ghoul,
Yeah,
and then
she's trying to de-escalate it.
she's trying to de-escalate it, but then it's kind of like, okay, here's where you're learning the rules of the wasteland. And those are such vital moments where it's like, it could be like a fucking like weird like half naked farmer dude
Mhm.
asking you to marry him, or it could be bandits who are trying to kill you. So kind of like you
To
have to
eat
really
you.
judge.
I was
like,
gonna
you
say,
have to
not
judge
just
these
kill
things.
you,
Yeah.
To eat you.
literally devour
Well,
you.
and so throughout the first season, as you find out, Laura said they're like every different vault has different experiments going on. And it appears that Vault 33, the main belief is like they're building middle managers to help like manage different teams because these are corporate vaults at the end of the day. And so that's what you really get with Lucy is like the best middle manager where she's like, I'm trying to de-escalate situations. And like she definitely drinks the corporate Kool-Aid where she's like,
Mhm.
the vaults are amazing and we're democratic and we just love one another and it's so bad up here. We just need more time. And it's her finding out that like, oh, that actually like there are a lot of like quote unquote employees who get left behind when you like just buy into a system that only helps the people who are at the higher echelons, which I do think like is a huge theme of this season where it's all about like how capitalism is bad because you have resource holding and you have this like elitism where they're not trying to build a better like even corporation for the people who come after them because they're literally like, well, we'll just live forever then because we know
Yeah.
what to do and
Yeah.
we'll just keep running the show and everything will be fine. Like
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like the ways in which, you know, like a country like the United States has nuclear fallout shelters for politicians.
Yep.
They basically have like an escape plan for the most important people, like the VIPs of society. And so it's like, I think
Yep.
Fallout does a really good job in terms of commenting on who are the people who are in like the highest echelons of power and the decisions that they're able to make that determine what happens to the rest of the world in this case, or the rest of a company, or the rest of a particular society. And the fact that the vaults are like, because this is something that isn't explained in the video games, is why the bombs dropped. which is, I think, a really cool decision for the show to tackle
Yeah.
why the bomb drops and how it basically was a corporate capitalist decision for these different companies, or these different like lobbyists and these different managers to run these experiments on the future of humanity by creating the illusion of a nuclear war caused by Russia and the United States. It's like, that's really, really fucked up. Like really fucked up. But then you look at the real world and it's like, yeah, there are
It doesn't seem
if nuclear bombs
out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, 100%. Like if nuclear bombs dropped in the United States or wherever, like the president is going to be whisked away to wherever. Majority of people are just going to be laid to waste if they're close, or they're going to end up like all the people in the wasteland in Fallout, where they're like scrounging on the scraps, or they turn into ghouls or whatever. I don't, I like that bit of fantasy with the ghouls.
Well, I think that the way that the show was structured did a really good job of both adding that world building context.
Yeah.
While in a way that, because it whatever, we're all book and writer people, so we can't engage with anything without picking it apart, which is whatever. But
that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. But I always think about, like, when I'm working on stuff, like a scene is supposed to do more than one thing, right? If it's just moving plot, it's not enough. If it's just moving characters, not enough. If it's just describing world, it's not enough. It's got to do like a couple things. And I think that the way that they did that with the flashbacks for Cooper and the ghoul was like such a great way to build that character. Because so I was told in the beginning that I was going to have a crush on the ghoul. I was told this.
Oh, absolutely.
Not by you, Adrian, actually, but by someone else that had watched the show. Because I mean, whatever. First of all,
it wasn't the memes of the internet.
It might have been memes of the internet probably contributed as well. But like, also, I just have like a penchant for the problematic male lead and stuff.
Same.
So as many of us do, right? But I did not have a crush on the ghoul actually at any point. I did like him though, but I hated him at first. In the first episode, obviously he's in like for 4 seconds. The second episode though, he kills a fucking dog, and I was like, no, absolutely not. And then he brings the dog back to life, and I was like, okay, you're back on even ground though now, buddy, because you shouldn't have killed the fucking dog in the first place. But yeah, by the time we reached the end, once I had seen like kind of what got him there, right? Like what has gotten him to this mindset that like not only has he gone through all the shit that he's gone through post-apocalypse, basically, but like the fact that he has to reckon with like the person that he loves the most and the trusted the most kind of helped get them there. Like that would break anyone, you know what I mean? And that I feel like that was done so well with, and it's rare for a show that I enjoy flashbacks and what's happening in the present equally. And I did in this show. Usually when it goes to a flashback, I'll be like, oh, okay.
The flashbacks were so
they were so good.
At adding context to like the present day. And it's like, yeah, like he had some rough shit to deal with. Not only like my wife was one of the key players in starting this nuclear apocalypse, but then on top of that, like he's had 200 years as a ghoul to ruminate on that shit, and
it sounds like
and he's a war veteran himself too. So there's like all these things that like
he already had PTSD.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like the ghoul as a character, he is the one who we see like how we got there. Like we open with him, we find out he's kind of downtrodden. He went through a divorce. He's a famous actor who now has to do parties to like.
Oh my god! But not only that, he is like the PR face of the company that created the vault.
A vault
that he now hates. Yeah, but we don't know that really yet at the very beginning. We don't find that out till the end.
Until he like shoots a billboard of the Pit Boy, and then we're like, wait, what?
And then it shows like it was his thumbs up, and that's why he doesn't want to do a thumbs up at the beginning of the episode. And he's lived for like 200 years as a ghoul, like Adrian said. And he is just like very much, he's gone through it. He eats other ghouls in order to like keep himself going. He knows what to do. He's lived a long life. And there are moments where like it comes to that, where he talks to the soldiers and he's like, I used to wear a suit like yours. And you just know this man has like lived so many lives. I do know that Laura definitely fell to the crush on the ghoul because I had numerous texts about Walton Goggins in my
He's a fantastic actor, though.
Yeah,
Like,
he is
He's
a
a
great
really good
actor.
actor.
But I don't know.
Both
It's like for me,
timelines was
it's like
so good.
the nose isn't really doing it for me, or the lack thereof as ghoul style.
If you truly have a crush on a character, you can overlook a lot of stuff.
I
Yeah.
love his
You've seen
personality.
Adrian, I have a crush on Garrus Vicarian from Mass Effect. He's a bug, okay?
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
If I can have a crush on Simba from Lion King, I
That's
think we can
Okay.
make it
Teenage
work.
Simba? Yes, for all of us
Yes.
as children.
I'm sorry.
Teenage Simba. Oh, this shit
Kovu
runs
from
deep.
Lion King 2. He was dark and
Yes.
dreamy.
Yes. Kovu may have been like my childhood like sexual awakening a little bit. I don't
Gosh,
know.
Yeah, like you
Questionable.
just
Wow.
we
Questionable.
all
That
have
voice?
one.
Who was that other? No, the Mummy was the other sexual awakening that you were telling me about once.
That was my bisexual.
Bisexual
yeah.
awakening. It's
That
both
is-
of them.
That's it
of
for
them.
many women.
And men. Yeah.
And
that
men,
was
yeah, everybody.
my bi awakening definitely upon retrospect later in life I found out, but was Dark Angel Jessica Alba on motorcycles. I was like, oh,
Ooh.
this is exactly
Right at the time, you were like,
Nice.
"Wow, maybe I want to ride a motorcycle. Do I want to be her?"
I was
And then
like, I
later you
just
look back and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't it, honey."
No, I was like, I just want to be Jessica Alba. Like, I want to dress in leather and ride on a motorcycle. Later in life, I was like, that was never my energy. That was never what was happening.
No one likes to dress in leather.
Yeah.
Just Hannah getting into like
Yeah,
potential S&M
exactly. Like those weird specific fantasies that are just in the back of my mind.
Where are all the zippers?
But I mean, Walton Goggins plays the ghoul and Cooper Howard, and I loved like how old 50s energy. Like I loved all the
Yeah.
scenes with
His
the
accent is
cowboy.
great.
I also really liked that like it shows. I don't think any one of these characters is like a perfect person at all, and even like Cooper Howard, like you're voting for him to do the right thing, but you also recognize like he is like pretty
He's still sold out
conservative.
to a
He still
corporation.
sells out to corporations. And there is like a moment he has with Matt Berry of What We Do in the Shadows fame, Laszlo, our good time boy.
Jackie Daytona, my
Jackie
favorite
Daytona.
character ever.
Just normal human guy.
Just a regular human guy.
Yeah, just a regular human guy. Where he just like says the theme of the show where he's like, we're all products. We all sell things. And like Cooper Howard is that person who just sells out, and then like later in life it's like, wow, I've had to do so much and now I can do anything because all of my morals were left behind long ago.
Yeah, because
But
we see like in the
isn't it-
beginning of the show how he even doesn't want to deliver certain lines in his cowboy
Yes.
movies where he's like, I don't want to say that, like it doesn't seem like it's on brand for me, you know, and they're like, no, deliver this. And then as we get farther along in the show, we're like, oh, he became that person, and then some.
But isn't it kind of like uncanny how even in the future in the wasteland, like there is so much consumerism, there is so much like even that like the vault dwellers themselves are products, and so many of the people, it's like bottle caps is essentially
I was
the
just
form
gonna
of
say
currency.
they use the bottle caps. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's
there's
like
a lot
bottle
of
caps.
product placement too,
Yeah,
even in the
exactly.
wasteland, because there's like the Nuka-Cola machines that you see, and there's like all these different
There's like the little vault boy in that woman's shop, you know. So it's like there's so much product placement even in the future. So it's kind of like the irradiated future that is in the present of the show is basically like retroactively adopting all of the product placement from the pre-apocalyptic era. And so it's kind of like Vault Tech is like the capitalist overlord of the past, present, and future of this whole world, and it's like so fucking insidious.
Well, we see that with Lucy's dad, who we find out he's over 200 years old. He was like in a cryogenically frozen like container until they moved him into her vault, and her mom figured it out, tried to run away, and the dad ended up like pretty much killing her mom until she was, nothing but a husk that we see at the end. That is very visceral.
Can I just say, like, shout out to Kyle MacLachlan, because he is like such a good actor at portraying like the nice guy, and just
And then
becoming
becoming
so
unhinged.
I was
fucking
gonna say, I
unhinged,
feel like
so
I've seen him
evil.
in
It's
other
so
stuff
good.
where he
Like,
plays
him
the
and- him
nice
and
guy
Twin-
with a
him and-
festering
him and-
underneath, you know?
Him in Twin Peaks is like he channeled so much of Twin Peaks in this
Mhm.
show, and I love it.
So,
I love it.
I
so
was
much.
very much a girl's girly growing up, and I knew him from Desperate Housewives, and he
Same.
also,
And
yeah,
here I am, like doing Twin Peaks.
I know him from.
yeah, you know him from Desperate Housewives.
You just unlocked a memory. He was like the new husband that was a doctor or something. He
Yes.
was
Reese's
sketchy
new
as fuck.
husband.
Oh
He-
my god.
He hit
I
Mike
forgot
with
about
a
this
car.
I forgot about this show entirely until you just said that, and now I've just had a flood of Eva Longoria and whatever.
Oh yeah, I
flooding
rewatched
into my brain.
I rewatched the first couple of episodes recently, so like going back into my '90s vault and being like, "Oh, what's both this show?" And I was watching it, I was like, "How did my parents let me watch this? This is wild!" Like we used to
Yeah,
watch
I
it
feel like
together.
there was like a lot of like pretty dirty stuff in there, but I do
Yeah.
remember watching it like as a
I mean, it is
however
called
old I
Desperate
was.
Housewives. How do you not think that there's going to be sex and penetration in this show?
I mean,
Right,
even in the
right.
opening sequence, you should have known.
Yeah, that's fair. But no, he is her second husband. He hits Mike Delfino with a car, and he is very much quote unquote nice guy who is like
Mhm.
much more devious when you get
Sneaky
beneath
behind
him.
the
So
scenes. Yeah,
Man,
Yeah.
he's
oh
just
my
ditching
God.
wives left and right in all of his TV
That
shows.
must be why I don't trust him anytime I see him in anything.
I have no idea what his name was on that show, but I'm like, yeah, he's the untrustworthy husband in that
I
show.
also
It's-
recognized him from that.
Yeah. So he is excellent in the show because
Yeah.
like he's very
He's the
much stand
untrustworthy
up.
vault leader.
And he really gets
Right.
not a lot of screen time, but what he does with it is just so powerful. And
Mhm.
you're just like, oh my gosh, I cannot even believe this. And then he's trying to get Lucy to, kind of team up with him at the end
Mhm.
and kind of condone his actions. And it's like, excuse you?
Yeah, well, the best part is I
child's
think the
mother
Lucy
is
from
right
the
there.
beginning, the Lucy
Mhm.
from the beginning would have, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I think the Lucy from episode 1, even if she had been told that like ghoul was her mom or whatever, I genuinely
Mhm.
think she still would have been like, no, dad knows best. I trust dad. But like
Yep.
it gives you the opportunity to really see how she grew.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Isn't
gained
it
new
cool that
trauma.
like that she kind of developed like the same level of skepticism as her brother?
Oh yeah.
Even though her brother didn't leave the vault, he was kind of like he was super skeptical of like everything,
Mhm.
you
Oh, yeah.
know, because he's kind of like the
He's a
slacker
really interesting
son.
character too.
Yeah, he's such an interesting character for me, and like I loved how him and Lucy's sort of like
Chet. Lucy's Chet.
Cousin lover.
how
Or are you
how-
talking about Betty?
No. I love how Lucy and her brother's storylines kind of like they kind of like Lucy was like super naive and her brother was way more skeptical at the beginning, but they kind of like came to a point of parity over the course of the season, which I really appreciate. And it's kind of like that's kind of the only way you can survive in this
Mhm.
particular world is if you're like super skeptical of everything.
Well, I also think that her brother was interesting because he's also kind of
He's ruthless compared
he-
to the other vault dwellers because like right off the bat, he's like, why don't we just like, murder these people? They were going to come in and do that to us. So why give them anything better?
He's got surface dweller energy, but
Yeah.
he's a vault dweller.
But
Yeah.
he also I noticed that he also like notices that he's kind of cowardly, like he's not
Yeah.
going to fight for other people. Like he's someone who's like very jaded, but also still kind of like he's someone who will never stand up to the chaos. Like throughout the show, he wants to know the answer, but then he can never really stand up
Do
for
anything
himself
about it.
afterwards. And so he's
Yeah.
very interesting. Also a character who I recognize from Hannah Montana.
I
Because
Deep
it
That's
is
okay. Speaking of characters we recognize, has anyone here watched Superstore?
yes.
Oh.
Yes.
What the hell is
First
Superstore?
thing- Yeah, so the
Thaddeus.
guy, Thaddeus.
He plays
is,
Cheyenne's.
There's the
Husband.
pregnant teenager, and
Yep,
he's
Cheyenne.
the pregnant or the teenager's boyfriend. He's also a teenager. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But he's like just this kind of like whatever. How would we even describe him?
He's kind of like he's a white man who believes that he is black, like very much that energy,
Yeah.
but,
and also just like a general like he's always trying to be scammy too,
Yeah.
and he's always
Mhm.
trying like so he's got that energy and also a little bit of like trying to be a gangster, but
Yeah.
he's totally not.
Right.
But he always just comes in and he's like, wah, 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 like trying to do like the party siren with his mouth. And so yeah, as soon as he showed up on
Amazing.
screen,
Does he
I
ha-
was
His
like
like,
name is
kinda
Johnny
like
Pemberton, and everyone needs to follow his Instagram. It's so funny. Like he does these
Yeah,
role playing
on Instagram
videos where
too.
he like talks about garbage trucks and stuff like that. And he went to like a garbage truck convention and just totally punked a bunch of people, making them think he was actually genuinely interested in garbage trucks, and it was hilarious.
oh my god, that
Uh,
sounds
Oh my
hilarious.
God,
So
how
yeah,
chaotic.
he plays the Thaddeus character who like beats up on Maximus. And then later, like you kind of feel for him because again, it's like Maximus's main character energy showing through where he was like, I was bullied, I was beat up on. And then the kid's like, yeah, that's what we do in the army. Like I'm really sad
Like,
he
so
never
was
got the
I.
yeah.
It's like
And he's
it's a continually like escalating hierarchy of like
Mhm.
someone always has to be like the bottom rung, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunately the person who gets picked on and beat up.
And it's just like Maximus never had the context of like, oh, other people probably went through the same thing. He's always like, this is
Yeah.
unique to me. And it's like, it probably wasn't.
Mm.
And that even comes through with Maximus's friend, who was supposed to be the squire.
Yeah.
And they were harmed when they were putting on their boots to leave. Someone put razor blades in them in a very graphic scene.
Yeah.
And later, and everyone thinks Maximus was the one who did it. And you can tell Maximus thinks it was someone else, or it's kind of questionable.
Mhm.
And then at the end of the scene, you find out that the friend is the one who did it.
Because they didn't want to go into the wasteland.
They didn't want to go. Well, see, honestly, I thought the whole time that Maximus had done it and knew that he was guilty and was like
Because you
trying
wouldn't
to
put it
hide
past him.
Yeah, I
And,
wouldn't
and
put
I
it past
wouldn't
him.
have,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like I think, and that's good storytelling right off the bat that
Mhm.
it shows us that ruthless energy.
And even
like, pretty
Dane's
much right
confession
away.
isn't that believable.
Yeah.
No, well, that's
like,
the thing. When the friend confesses, I literally was like, "Oh my God, they're taking the bullet for him.
Yeah.
Damn,
Mhm.
that is a friend." And then the second confession, like later when they're talking just privately to Maximus, I was like, "Oh fuck, no, they actually did that."
Yeah. It was great. It was wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The roller coaster.
I gasped out loud when that happened. Like I was watching it by
It
myself and
was
I went,
gross.
Yeah.
Of
So,
all the disgusting shit that happens in this show.
oh,
I mean,
know,
that
the
was one of
worst
the more
was
bothersome.
they
the,
have a lot
the
of
fish
foot
with the
stuff.
finger.
The
Oh,
salamander
Yeah, that
with
was
the
pretty
finger
gross.
mouth.
yeah.
Salamander.
The
Thank you.
gulper.
Yeah, the gulper. I did
Although-
not like that at all with the big. Honestly, like the gulper themselves was fine. I mean, not fine.
It was the
It's
fingers in the mouth.
adorable
The finger
deer.
was-
I will
Yeah.
never forgive
No,
it for that.
what was gross about like the most disturbing thing to me was like the
The
nails
fingers
trying
in
to
the
dig into the
throat.
skin.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like like
I
that,
didn't
like
like that.
the nails, and I was like, no, fuck those
Well,
nails. Get the clippers out.
They have a lot of foot injuries in this because you have like the friends with the razor blades,
Thaddeus. Yeah.
and then you have the
Johnny
person
Pemberton's character. as well.
Johnny Pemberton's character, his leg gets like stomped on by Maximus, and then you have the person, I cannot remember his name, but he
Well, the
has, like,
doctor right at the
the
beginning
doctor,
loses a
yeah,
foot too.
he loses a foot. But that one is funnier
Wizard, right?
because the chicken bestiality man is yelling to him saying like, I have cures for everything, I have a foot cure, because he sees that he's missing a leg.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Well,
later,
that guy was.
And then he
funny
does
like
have a foot
that.
cure.
Yeah.
and then
He
he
does,
does,
but it's
cure
not-
his foot, but it's
Ooh,
not
but does
good.
he though?
He just
Because that's the thing that's funny, because that I think that probably goes back to what Adrian was saying with that kind of being a callback to stuff in the games. But like,
Yeah.
I loved how that guy kept showing up and proclaiming to have a cure for whatever ailment happened
Oh
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
on
No, but
screen.
it's like
It was very
the
like
snake oil
cabbage salesman from
Very
Avatar.
from
Avatar,
Avatar, right? Where it was
Yeah.
just like, why is he always here? But then it was kind of like, ooh, like a gut punch moment at the end when it's like, oh, he actually like did have a cure for all these things, but it's the same cure and it will fucking destroy everything else about you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's kind of playing into how ghouls become ghouls and
Mhm.
like all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
as well. But that like snake oil salesman kind of vibe like comes up in the games so much, where you get like
So
swindled,
interesting.
or it's like the snake. They're basically like baiting you into being ambushed and stuff like that. So with that snake oil character, I was like, fuck yeah, like that's someone to
Yeah.
watch, you know, because those are the kind of characters, and like especially when they start to become recurring. I'm like, oh
Oh.
hell yeah, oh hell
Right?
yeah.
Like something's gonna go on with this guy here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like definitely that character's gonna show up in season 2 again, like
Ah.
100%. So I love it when stuff like that kind
And
of
it's
pops up
definitely
every
one of
show.
those like you have to kind of it's one of those choose your own adventure type things too,
Yep.
because he has the option to just kill the guy and take the medicine himself, and he's like, but how do you know which one to take? And it's like, oh
Exactly.
crap.
Yeah. And that's like in the game, it's like, oh, you have like different dialogue
Mm-hmm.
options. You know, what are you going to
Yep.
choose here? And those are the kinds of things that kind of play into like how the games you get to like choose your own morality essentially. And in the show, it's really cool how you get to see different characters and how they interact with the wasteland. Like like I can't remember the name of his character in the show, but Johnny Pemberton, like he also has his own level of like naivete.
Yeah.
And I just really love how like he's so chummy when he thinks that Maximus is Titus,
Yes,
is
it's
the knight.
Titus.
And he's just like having these really honest conversations as if it's like we're just bros like hanging out after work having a beer, and then the ways in which his you can kind of like see the two-faced nature of like different people, and especially with the Brotherhood of Steel, how, and even in the Wasteland in general, like everyone has multiple faces that they're wearing.
Yeah.
Like when he's with Knight Titus, he's very chummy because he's trying to like, charm this person who is essentially his superior. But then when he finds out it's Maximus, the whole thing switches around. And then when he's on his own, it's like, how are you going to fucking deal with the Wasteland on your own, buddy? But then everyone, it's like someone who's trying to sell you something, they might be trying to swindle you. They see that you're a vault dweller, so I can kind of like screw you over for more caps. And everyone has this very like multi-faced nature to them depending on who they're interacting with, and they portrayed that super super well. And through Lucy's eyes, it's like everyone's good until
Everyone's
they're
my
not.
best friend.
We could all be reasonable if we just tried hard enough.
Exactly. Like that's the thing. She's trying to be a middle manager in a world where middle management is going to get you killed.
Yeah.
And
there's this moment where
her
she's
waking
like,
up to that is so brilliant.
there's this moment where she's like lecturing the ghoul and like, that's not living by the golden rule. And he's like, how about this golden rule? Thou shalt get sidetracked every damn time.
Which I heard is an Easter egg
I'm
to
just
the
like,
game
yeah.
because everyone gets sidetracked in the game. So that was like supposed to be kind of a fun play with the game. I actually really liked the Thaddeus character because like he showed a lot of the fear that comes with the Brotherhood of Steel. Like when he realizes it's Maximus, his first instinct is just like, they're going to kill us because I helped
I
you.
need to report this now.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Thaddeus. Like really, I latched onto him pretty quickly after he joined Maximus, right?
It was hard because like at one point my fiance, he was like really upset that Maximus was about to kill Thaddeus. He was like, but he's so nice. And I was like, please remember that he was his like bully.
He was a bully.
Right?
I totally get what you're saying, and I agree, but we do have to remember that in the context of things, this man like brutally bullied this other man. And so but like I also latched onto Thaddeus, and I thought like it did show with the cultish like behavior that you don't really know what's going on and you just accept things. Because even when Thaddeus like gets hit in the neck, he thinks he's about to die, and then he's like, why am I not dying? Why am I not dying? And they tell him that he's now a ghoul. And like his first instinct was like, I knew I shouldn't have trusted a doctor who smelled like that. And I was like, what? Yes. How did you
Don't trust
him?
the stinky doctor.
Yeah, that seems pretty specific. That man looked so untrustworthy. Like,
there was a lot more about that man not to trust. But good to know where your head was at, man.
Thinks of is that he's fearful of the Brotherhood for his life because he's like, okay, well, they're gonna destroy me now.
They're coming for me now. Yeah.
But I hope they expand a lot on that in season 2, because that's something in the video games where it's like you realize like, okay, yes, like the Brotherhood of Steel can be allies in a lot of contexts, but they're also like they're basically they're like a war cult, and so it's like their hierarchy is strict, and like their codes of honor and everything are really strict, and like the tolerance for insubordination and things like that are not handled in a way that you would be like, oh yeah, like no wonder Thaddeus's mind goes straight to that, because it's basically like you are going to be tortured and probably killed. And so there's like these varying degrees of like I really like how they're called the Brotherhood of Steel and they call themselves knights and everything like that, because they are such outward proponents of this sort of like chivalrous, valiant,
Well, they don't
sort
have
of
like
like
sex education.
No.
yeah,
It happens to other people,
They're-
not me. It's
Right.
never happened to me, but
But sometimes it's like a pimple and then it pops.
sometimes like a
exactly.
pimple
Oh my
that
God.
I forgot about that.
That's such a gross line.
It's
Jesus Christ.
so
I was gonna
gross.
say, I hope to never think of it like a pimple that pops ever,
Yeah.
ever again.
But then inwardly, it's like you see how like cultish and hierarchical and brutal they are, and I love that it's like no matter which faction, even the bad, even like Moldover,
yeah.
the lady who's basically like a rebel,
The commander
know?
of the New Republic.
exactly. There's so much sort of throughout the show like propaganda in terms of like trying to get you to view them in a specific way, and the show does this really really well, where it's like it basically like provides tunnel vision for you about certain people and certain factions until the moment where things just like widen and you realize like, oh shit, I was totally wrong about everything that they were doing, all of their motives. And I love how they provide that for sort of for the Brotherhood of Steel, like probably more next season, but like Moldover, for the Vaults, for Hank as a character, for the Ghoul as well. Like you have like such like a tunnel perception of who the Ghoul is, but then you see his flashbacks and things start to widen bit by bit. This show did an amazing job of guiding your understanding of certain people and
Like,
creating
Well, and it's interesting too because like Norm is going out and trying to seek out answers. Lucy is learning about the world through experience, and then we are being told the story through flashbacks with ghouls. So there's like this layered storytelling that we get that I feel like is pretty unique, but then they tie it all together at the end, and it's really well done.
yeah.
I also think it's very, I don't know if ironic is the right word because I always get worried about using that, where how many people get blasted for using ironic poorly. But a huge line that they
Isn't
use
it
over
ironic when people fuck up the word ironic?
right? But a huge line that they kept coming back to is like, war never changes. Like it's always the same. War never changes. Da, da, da,
That's
da.
the first line of every single one of the video games.
Oh, okay. But like my
Oh.
thing is in this show specifically, a lot of the people who are still at play and still in power are the same people from 200 years ago. So I want to be like, yeah, it never changes because it's
Because the
still the
people
same
haven't changed.
players.
People.
Yeah, like
Which
and they
actually,
haven't
like, how is
learned.
Moldaver still alive?
So that
I
like,
was literally just gonna ask that, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to ask that because what if I just missed something and it's really
No, for
obvious?
sure.
Yeah.
Like for sure, it's going to be in season 2 where they're going to reveal.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, because I know that they've like there are
Because
people with
she's
certain
tall.
theories.
She's tied into Vault Tech.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's her
Oh.
skincare routine? She looks great for teenagers.
Fantastic.
Like, girl, you in
We-
your like 50s or 60s, you're looking good.
Right?
We
Got
don't
that
want
Especially in the
hyaluronic
wasteland.
acid going on.
Cooper Howard skipped his vitamin C serum, and
And that's
then he-
how he
and
lost
then-
the nose. Be careful.
Sunscreen is important, guys. You have to use sunscreen every
So
day.
your nose doesn't fall off.
Yes.
That's the lesson I'm going to teach my boys. is,
I
like,
was literally
sunscreen
just gonna
every
say,
day.
Adrian, that sounds like a lesson you could like use for children
Yeah.
that they to scare them into wearing sunscreen.
Just show them a picture of a ghoul. Be like, you want to look like this, especially in this Ecuadorian sun. So
and
much
then
UV.
they never sleep again. You're welcome.
Exactly. Yeah. Just haunting my children's dreams.
Well, that's like they say that Sex and the City women are like the same age as the people who are in the Golden Girls, and they're like, "What's the difference?" And it's like, well, people used to rub themselves in oil and sit in the sun, so maybe
Yeah.
we just learned how to have sunscreen.
We just
Yeah.
stopped doing
I'm gonna like
that.
lather myself up and like baste myself like a chicken, and then just go out into the sun.
Go
Just
hang out.
sit there.
Just go hang out, you know,
Gosh, I
like
can't imagine.
you know, like you go to a supermarket and they have those like roasted chickens that are on a spit.
Oh yeah,
That's pretty much what like they were
yeah,
doing.
the
That's what
rotisserie
people were
chickens,
doing.
Yeah, like a nice
Uh-huh.
rotisserie. Yeah.
and I'm someone who I like sat underneath a car sunroof open for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, why am I pink already? And so
I'm so burnt.
I'm in so much pain. I'm trying to think.
Did anybody have like a favorite episode specifically, or maybe like a favorite moment?
I really liked the Vault 4 stuff because I thought it showed a little bit of Lucy's hypocrisy. Like she's very much like, "Oh yeah, totally. I'm very like involved and this is a perfect community." But then when they had differences and they weren't like they didn't have the views of like able-bodied people or like similarities to Lucy, she was very much like this place is weird. And I liked that there was the inverse with Maximus where he was like, "Why do you care so much? These people seem
Right,
nice."
right.
And I really thought that was really effective because it shows that, like, even in communities that are quote unquote perfect, a lot of times you're still teaching people to only appreciate what they view as normal, which goes back to some of Lucy's specifics in episode 1, where like she asks her future spouse, who ends up being an outsider, and like, uh, what his sperm count is, and like she's very involved in like, well, we are supposed to repopulate the community, so like this is what you're here for, it's not for anything else, and you're useless to me if you can't do that kind of thing. And it is like specifically showing the lack of those types of communities when you're supposed to be based on one view.
Right. Are we not supposed to be asking men about their sperm count on our first dates? I might be doing this wrong.
That's exactly what a guy wants to hear. Be like, is it gonna pop like a pimple? But Lucy and her upbringing reminds me so much of the Stepford Wives.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like this veil of perfection, and obviously that's what Vault Tech created for like its management class. But
Yeah.
then, like you said, like she goes to Vault 4, and it's like, like these people are so weird. There's like mutants mixed with, and everyone just has these like little differences that in normal life we wouldn't be judging someone. It's like in real life, like going around and being like your skin color, you're in a wheelchair, like all this different shit. And it's like, yeah, like Lucy's prejudices based on the perfection that she came from. That was like a cool dichotomy. But for me, it's like the moment where Lucy realizes everything. Like she's with Moldover, she's with her dad. She realizes that this like corpse is her mom. This like ghoul is her mom. Like all of that, when all of those pieces coalesced, like the different mysteries, especially when it was kind of like in conjunction with her brother being in the vault, realizing everything that's going on. Those were the moments where it was like everything was starting to click into place, and I was like, that is a good mystery. Like that is how you string a viewer along and then deliver everything at like just the right moment. Like I think episode 8, not everything about it was perfect, but those moments where the mysteries like finally came together was so well done. Like I just loved learning everything about what Cooper was experiencing in the past, where he found out like basically like everyone in this fucking Vault Tech company is like around a table as if they're like doing war games, like politicians in an 80s movie.
Well, and they
But
were
they're deciding on
different
the fate of the world.
companies. It was different
Yeah.
companies all coming together and just being
Yeah.
like, we get to do our like little fucked up like
Yeah.
experiments, and you're just
Here's the guy from
learning.
Nuka-Cola. Here's like some cigarette
Yeah.
baron or some shit. Like they're all just gonna decide on like what the fate of the world is. Like when those moments started to come together later on in the season, that for me was like, okay, this is like really good storytelling, because obviously episode 1 was quite slow and things were sort of slow to progress, but it kind of needed to be, because Lucy came from this like veneer of perfect reality and then experiencing all this shit in the wasteland. But then like once her brother starts to figure things out, when she fits the pieces together of the puzzle, especially about her dad and her mom, and how what's the name of the Sandy, the town?
Sandy Shores?
Sandy Shores? Yeah.
Shady Sands.
Shady Sands.
Shady Sands. Ah.
And how it's like how Shady Sands like played into like Maximus is a survivor of the nuclear bomb that went off in Shady Sands. And when you realize like, oh, it's actually, Lucy's dad who was the one who blew up that bomb, and her mom was like basically like the fucking
instigator of it. Like
her mom was like one of the big shakers and movers in that town, and like trying to create a new California Republic and all this different kind of stuff. All of those pieces fit together so well. The reveals were done really well. So I think that for me was like, you know, this season worked because they were able to connect those dots in really engaging ways.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I will say an episode that I really enjoyed was episode 4, where the ghoul tries to sell Lucy in exchange for vials.
That's what I was gonna say.
She has to go into this like dilapidated supermarket, and
Yeah.
there's these people who are like harvesting organs, and they have a bunch of trapped ghouls, and
In the
Lucy,
freezers.
yeah, in the
In
freezers,
walk-in
and
freezers, yeah.
Lucy convinces them to let them out, or she's going to shoot them, and things become really chaotic. And there's a moment where she has to like kill her first person, and it's just like a turning point for her because she's such a naive person and lives by the golden rule. And in this episode, especially, she kind of is like, okay, well, now I have to leave this part of me behind because
Mhm.
I've killed someone. And I think it's just a really defining moment for her character, and also just very sad when you're watching what happens to these ghouls when they become feral, because we have
Yeah.
the moment earlier with Roger, the friend
Mhm.
of Cooper Howard's,
He
who
was so
becomes feral.
sweet. That was
He
such a
was
sweet moment too. Yeah.
And the way that they're like talking to
Followed by
themselves.
very much not.
Yeah, like it's kind of like they're kind of like going through like a deep schizophrenia
Mhm.
as they become feral. But then like when Lucy was in the supermarket and that one female ghoul came out, she's like wants to help her and everything,
She's
and I'm
like,
like,
yes, you're
no,
Martha. You're Martha.
you're Mar. And she's like,
Yeah.
fucking
I
step
know,
back,
but it
girl,
was
step
so
back.
hard, and I agree that was like a huge character turning point for Lucy, which is one of the reasons why I really liked that episode and scene. Another reason is because that crazy Dr. Robot, that
Yeah.
whose
I loved
voice
him
I
so-
recognized immediately.
Matt
Yes.
Berry is so funny, and I adore him so much. And just like his line reading is as the robot. Again, so
So
many
good.
good joke moments. But when she's like, I was really worried this was a sex thing. And he was like, ew, I'm just going to harvest your organs. And I was like, I love having a robot tell a woman ew. Like, that is perfect. Thank you. No notes.
There are also so many robots in the Fallout video games that are like really interesting and complex characters, where it's like, you know, you'll come across someone like where it's like legit like a psychopathic robot who doesn't know that they're psychopathic. They're basically like programmed to do a certain thing, and it's like the delivery, because of the way that they have this like 50s retro futuristic aesthetic, the robots always kind of have this like very dry delivery, even though they're doing really fucked up stuff. And I love it so much. Like that is like, that is how the video games in the show really nail that dark humor and that satire, and just like blending it into a situation where you're like, why is this happening? And then it's like something like that where, is this a sex thing? Ew, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's this like kind of multi-layered sort of emotional experience of like the humor and the twisted darkness of it, and like the fact that this character thinks she's going to be sexually assaulted, and even it's
so
like,
scary.
oh my god, dude.
A moment of relief, and then, oh no, your organs. Like,
Oh yeah, just harvesting your organs, don't worry about it. Don't worry
I
about it.
also like highlight of the season for me definitely included the bear attack of the like
cave?
radioactive bear in the
Yeah, yeah.
cave with Titus, because then you just find out like how stupid the Brotherhood it really is underneath it,
Yes.
because you have this like strong quote unquote warrior
Who's the
and
name of the actor who
Michael Rappaport.
Yes.
Um,
He was like the perfect person to basically be
Great
like, here's this
casting.
like power armor strong man with this like deep voice with its kind of like like sort of like robotic kind of like
Transformerish.
filter.
Like,
Yeah. And then he takes off the helmet and it's fucking Michael Rappaport with his Boston accent, and I'm like, this is too perfect, dude.
It's so good. And just like watching him run away saying like fuck.
Yes, that's so
And-
perfect because it's in the tinny like filtered voice as well. It's like
Yeah.
fuck.
And I just liked it because then it was like juxtaposed with Maximus later, like making sure that he was the person in the line of fire for Thaddeus, even if he didn't like that person, where he was like, no, I know what it felt like to be treated like that. And it wasn't okay. And like, I loved that because it did show like the humanity of Maximus after he had done a ton of dark shit before that.
Can I also just point out how stupid the Brotherhood is? That like the ghoul in the last episode is like, there's a major flaw in these suits. I wonder if you guys fixed it. Oh, looks like you didn't.
Nope.
Like, what is wrong with you people?
That is like the Death Star, like whatever, the fucking like little hole that you can just short it. I don't understand how it's like this like hole that's like this, and the torpedo goes like into the tube like that. Wouldn't it just hit the hole and like explode at the back?
Right.
Like, I don't fucking know how that happens. Anyways, yeah, I like that felt like
the Force, Adrian.
the Force. He just guided it straight down
yeah,
that tube.
like, that's what happened.
But those are like the kinds of things that kind of play into the humor as well, where it's like, this is really stupid. Like, you guys didn't figure that out after like 200 years.
200 years.
Of
No,
having
because
that power armor.
Because it's probably the same engineers. They just brought them
I
back.
was
And
gonna
we're
say, maybe it's just a
like-
callback to the corporate energy we've had, because how many I don't know
Just
if
like
any
deep,
of us
deep
besides
corporate
me
energy.
are corporate folks, but I've been on many a committee where we meet bi-weekly for a year and have the same fucking agenda items. So they just had the same agenda items that just kept getting pushed, Adrian. They just could not get
I
to fix
also
them.
appreciate the this is like actual irony that a corporation like Amazon created a show that was so anti-corporate.
Yes.
Yeah.
That for me
They
was
were
like,
hoping none of us would notice that.
yeah, Amazon Prime Studios, and then just like
Well, and I think I read a fun fact somewhere that they used like Amazon warehouses for some of the vaults. I thought I read that on Reddit, so
that
we can't
is
quote
too
it. But
perfect.
Do
I'm
you
pretty
think
sure like
he bought the rights to see if they actually had that type of technology with that they were working on the video game so he could use it?
Maybe.
is cold fusion a thing?
I
Daddy
guarantee you,
Bezos bought the rights and was
I
like,
guarantee
but can we do
Bezos
it?
has a vault. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah, he's looking at like Todd Howard, who's like a video game designer, and be like, can we do this?
right?
Like, let's do this. You know, I'll sell one of my like fucking super yachts, and we'll just build a vault.
Right. We'll just please let me be the voice of a robot, and then I can live forever like Matt Perry.
put my brain in a
Put my
Roomba.
brain-
Yeah.
Put my brain on a Roomba.
What did he
Yeah.
call him? Billy's boys, or what was
Yeah.
Billy's
Bud's
boys?
Buds.
Boys.
Buds
Buds,
Buds.
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 That is definitely a manager's decision where they were like, I
Oh
think
my
this
God.
is funny. And it's like 200 years later, people still have to say buds, and you
Buds.
have to think about that.
And it's like a little part of me dies inside.
So
But yeah, like bravo Amazon. Like I'm just glad
Another
that
Reddit thing I just
Amazon-
want to mention. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just like glad that Amazon did something good after like the dumpster fire that was Rings of Power. So I'm glad that they're like their money is like being invested into.
They've got the boys.
Boys too. Yeah.
The Boys is so good. I'm
Like
one
The
episode
Boys-
behind.
The Boys and Fallout. It's like good. You got some hits. Like let's keep the hits coming. No more rings of not so powerful. Terrible shit.
I will also mention another Reddit thing that I saw commonly mentioned was that people could not believe the romance between Maximus and Lucy, to which I was like, it's completely believable because these characters are just so naive and have never like had a true relationship.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to mention that it's like obviously they would fall in love. That
the
she
most
fell in love
believable.
instantly with some random man. Like she's obviously going to fall in love with him.
Yeah.
She watched that man rub his dick on her curtains, and she was still like, I could make it work.
Yeah. That was like a you know, channeling 1950s. That was like,
yeah.
you know, 1950s divorce is not a fun process and is very much frowned upon. I can make it work, you know.
Right,
If
exactly.
he rubs his dick on the curtains, I'll clean him. We can do it.
It'll be fine. We're all in this together. His sperm count is high. So.
Yeah. I've got a washing
matters?
machine. I can
Yeah,
wash these
it's
things.
fine.
We good.
No, I fully believed their relationship because when she looked at like Lucy is a character who very much just like, oh, I'm in the vault. I have sex with my cousin sometimes. You know, all those types of things.
She was so ready. She was like
was-
she was a fucking shotgun wedding, and she was like she was
Yeah.
on board for it.
but she would like saw him in his night costume, and she was like, "Was that a knight?" And then she immediately is like, "Are you the knight I saw earlier?" And I was like, "100%, this is her energy." And then they're
Yeah.
just like sitting in a room that has like a viewable window, and she's like, "Well, do you want to have sex?" And I'm like, "Lucy, like."
No, but he's her literal knight in
Knight
shining
in shining,
armor.
yeah. And so I did like him saying, "Well, the Brotherhood can't do that." And later he was like, "I had caviar, I had an oyster, I had an aphrodisiac. I'm ready to
Oh my
go."
God.
Like,
I had
That's all
oysters
you
and
needed.
I'm ready. That's all I need, baby.
except he had like an open a whole ass bottle of champagne in there, and I was like, maybe you're just drunk, like.
Who cares? He just
So
wants a good shag.
he wants to
know?
make that pipple pop. So
Ah!
Sorry to anyone who listens to this and was planning on having sex later. This is
Sorry,
really
not
good for you.
sorry.
Yeah, how hot are you feeling now? Let's talk about Fallout and then just like talk later.
That's obviously how I get into the mood. I watch Fallout of all
Yeah.
things.
And actually, people usually use our podcast to kind of like prepare
Your
themselves.
podcast is like the SFF
It's the foreplay.
aphrodisiac.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
Oh man.
I will also say that something I liked about the show was how colorful it was for how dark it would suddenly get. Like it's
Yeah.
bright blues and yellows and like lots of product placement where you're seeing like all these ads, and then all of a sudden like someone's bone is just sticking out of their body, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is energy I'm not used to seeing in a television show.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
kind
the
of
kind
like
of
the
juxtaposition was
Yeah.
very cool.
I cannot wait for season 2 because they're gonna go to New Vegas. And New Vegas
Yeah.
is like, imagine like that energy with all like the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas with like some dark
Ooh.
undertones. Yeah.
Well, and I know that they have like they Easter egged the person who kind of runs New Vegas. He's one of the people at the corporate table. So I think
Yep.
that will be fun to bring him back. So I'm
Yeah.
interested.
And then obviously at the end, like Lucy's dad, Hank, is in the power armor, and then
Mm-hmm.
he's basically like standing on the hill, because that's what we all do. I just like arrive at the place that I'm trying to get to, and I just stop at the hill to
mean,
gander, to gander upon my destination.
I mean, even his tube marked him as an executive assistant. So I feel like he would do that and be like, look at how powerful I am now.
Right.
I was an executive assistant and now I'm here.
He's got like such little dick syndrome. It's crazy. But now he's got power armor, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's all he needed. So, all right. Is there anything else we haven't covered? I don't think so.
Can
I
I
mean-
just say like the sound design in the show is also
Oh.
like really good. I talked about the music,
Yes.
Mhm.
but the sound design, like overall, every little thing, like the power armor, the way it has like the like sounds of like the hydraulics and
Mhm.
stuff,
Oh yeah.
the guns, the monsters, like all sound super cool. Like that salamander, that mutant
Oh.
salamander was like just as creepy by like the way the water like gurgled as it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
as
Like
it's
the smacking
approaching.
sounds it
Yeah.
makes. Like, ew.
Oh my god.
Ah,
Yeah.
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 Like everything was so good.
It's very visceral.
Yeah.
Were there any issues you guys saw or like anything that like left you from like loving it or anything like that? Other than like kind of the slowness that MJ talked about.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, and that's the thing. Like in retrospect, I think that the perceived slowness on my part of the first episode was necessary to set things up.
Mm.
It's just when I'm recommend. It's kind of like back when Game of Thrones was good. I would always recommend people watch 2 episodes before
Mhm.
they come back and say, "What the fuck did you recommend to me?"
Even like
but-
House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
for different reasons though, because the reason why I
Yeah.
always recommended 2 episodes for Game of Thrones is because the first one is like incest, and then it's like whatever. But this one was like, I guess this one was incest at first too with the cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So maybe
slow
that's the
burns
rule.
those.
If
Yeah.
there's incest in episode 1, I
Watch
will
episode
recommend
2.
watching 2.
Is that
But
like
yeah,
the
no,
goal?
I don't
Is
really have
that our new golden rule for
Yes.
television? If
I
there's
think that's
incest
the
in
new
episode
golden rule
1,
for
watch episode
television.
2.
If there's incest in episode 1, give it one more before you judge it, all right? But yeah, no, I didn't really have any complaints. I mean, I just really enjoyed it. I'm not a big TV watcher, as we talked about a
Yeah.
little bit off air, so it takes a lot for me to get into a television show. And I watched this whole thing. Like, I started it early to prepare for us to talk about it because I was like, okay, I need to make sure. And then I finished it so fast that I actually had to refresh myself today before we recorded because I finished it like a while ago. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Good. Laura,
I also
anything?
loved it. I one of my favorite shows so far this year. I apparently just love shows based on video games.
Yeah.
Which
I don't.
is, you know, a
Yeah,
good
I
thing
don't.
for like this new trend of like they're actually good now.
They're actually making good
Right?
video games. I remember at the beginning when Maximus was doing some of his darker stuff, I didn't love that a lot of the morally questionable characters all seemed to be people of color. That was the only thing I
Yes.
noticed. And I definitely
Interesting.
clocked
I
it
didn't pick
because
up on that.
it's
Yeah.
like the ghoul's
Because
wife,
Betty also.
Moldover,
Mm.
Betty, and Maximus. Those are like four of the primary people of color in the show. And they all had questionable morals. I think that they fixed it with Maximus really quickly. And I think they did a good job of making the ghoul pretty deplorable in my mind.
Yeah,
And
I would say the
Yeah.
ghoul was the worst of all of
Yeah.
them
so I
by
think that
far.
helped and it fixed it, like course corrected, but it was something that made me
Yeah.
uncomfortable at the beginning. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you guys like fixed it. And it wasn't just like, here are the morally gray characters and they all aren't
Yeah.
white. So I think they course corrected, but that was like my only
Mhm.
one criticism where the first 4 episodes I remember pausing it and being like, this makes me uncomfy. And then it got better. So
Yeah.
um
Can I point out another moment that I loved?
yeah.
The birthday party that like
Oh
takes
yeah.
place in
At
the
the very
past.
beginning.
At the
Mhm.
beginning.
But
Yeah.
when the bombs drop, and then there's like that moment where you start to see like everybody's true nature.
The one guy
That
who's
was
like
like,
punching out his friend to
yeah, or
not get
like
him in the
fucking
bomb
like
shelter.
push a kid aside, just like
Yeah.
I'm going to reveal my true nature here. And just like that shot of Cooper on the horse with his daughter as
Mhm.
they're like
Yeah.
riding away and you see the bombs dropping on Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like that was
Mhm.
just like visually stunning and terrifying all at the same time.
It was such a good opener. I was so
Yeah.
impressed with the way that opened. And then like bringing it back
Yeah.
to when he comes out as the ghoul, I'm like, oh, this is a beautiful like
Yeah.
beginning and ending.
Framing.
Just yeah, it was perfect. No,
It
that's
also leaves it really open-ended too, as far as like we don't know how his family ended up in the vaults slash missing, because what, as far as we know, they when
He was
the
with the
bombs
daughter.
dropped,
That's
they
what I was
were
so
together.
curious.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's like the obviously like for season 2, it's all about family, man, even in the apocalypse. Like the ghoul is going to be looking for his wife and Lucy's going to be looking for her mom or
Yeah.
for her dad. So it's kind of like cool that we'll get to see more of the complexities of like their backstories in
Yeah.
relation to like who they're particularly seeking out.
Have either of you guys watched Blue Eye Samurai?
No, but I have it like on my to
Okay,
watch list.
because I was just gonna say like we have this weird trend going of like morally questionable men and a random woman that they're with, and that's how
Is it like the new
Fallout.
lone wolf and
The
cub
lone wolf
trope?
of the yeah.
I must be drawn to these stories.
Because it happened with Fallout and it also happened with The Last of Us, and like I won't
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
anything about Blue Eye Samurai, but sort of like no spoilers, but
What does
I
that
mean,
say about me?
Blue-eyed
I was
samurai
just
makes
gonna
more
say, maybe
sense.
Laura, maybe it goes back to our penchant for problematic men. They're like noticing that audiences have this. They're like, let's just pair the lady with them. The girls love it.
I only noticed because Laura, like the last 3 things we've done for TV Tuesday, I'm like, it all ends the same exact way. That also goes back to us. We did for the Patreon, we did a watch along for Madam Web, and
Okay.
both Madam Web and The Last of Us have the like umbilical cord power getting into them. And we're like,
Yeah.
how did this happen twice in a month? Like, this is so weird. So I've just noticed this weird trend. I think it's funny when you could notice like trends in media and
Yeah.
it's like morally very gray man and then just some woman.
And his
Yeah.
lady
But
sidekick.
that's like I mean, Blue-eyed samurai makes the most sense because it's like that is like a very like manga anime
Yeah.
trope from coming from Japan, where it's like lone wolf and cub manga and like all these different things, but then it's like I've seen it adopted so many times
It's
in actually like books. But
Mhm.
specifically, like I know the authors, and I know that they pulled on that trope for a reason. Like our MJ, our friend Alexander Darwin, kind of like pulling that trope for his book, The Combat Codes. But it's like, yeah, The Last of Us was huge. Even in like Marvel movies, they do this
Yeah.
all the fucking time. Where it's like, I don't know
Iron
why.
Man 3.
I just remembered Iron Man 3 when I was like, huh, Tony Stark just kind of like adopted this little kid at Christmas.
Yeah.
At Christmas time. Oh.
Yeah. Huh. That's like
Well,
interesting.
that's like, I remember in literary fiction in 2016, there was a random trend that I noticed that was just like problematic white woman who's a mess, but it's told through the perspective of her boring friend. And it was like, look at this problem. She's so nuts. And it's just like, why is this happening 5 times? I've read the same book 5 times now. So just certain trends in media right now, it's lone wolf and a girl. So.
Yeah.
Lone wolf and a girl.
Lone wolf and a girl. Yeah.
But,
Well,
yeah.
good on you, Fallout.
Yeah.
Chasing the trends.
Keep up with them. I can't wait to
keep
see
on
what
keeping on.
happens. So.
Lone wolf and girl. Let's see.
All right.
Full speed ahead.
Any final thoughts?
This show was fantastic.
So good.
Stoked for season 2.
Loved it.
Yeah.
All right. MJ and Adrian, can you tell everyone where to find you right now?
I'm the lone wolf, so girl go first.
So girl go for are we a lone wolf and girl? That's kind of fun.
We are lone wolf and girl.
Welcome.
You need to get
Welcome to
grumpier for
SFF
us to
Addict.
be
Yeah, I'll add that.
appropriately a lone wolf and
I'll add that to
girl.
our intro. I'll be like the Chewie to my Han Solo, the Joker to my Commander Shepard, the girl to my lone wolf.
Like, what? Oh my god. Yeah. Well, you can find me on everywhere at MJ Kuhn Books. That's Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, blah blah blah, everywhere. Or just mjkuhn.com. And Adrian, do you want to say where we can find the show? Should I say where? Whatever. You can find the
You
show
can say it. Yeah.
across everything at SFF Addicts Pod, right?
Yeah, and you can watch it on YouTube or Spotify, or you can just like put it in your ear holes on any podcast app that you like.
There you go.
And yeah, and go get MJ's books, Among Thieves and Thick as
Oh
Thieves.
yeah, I always
Thick
forget to
ass
support-
thieves.
Yeah, Thick Ass Thieves.
Ass thieves,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, get that big booty book and support MJ's cat Thorin because
Yes,
he's hungry.
he's a
So
hungry
support
boy.
the Thorin food.
Yeah.
Also
Food
get Adrian's
fund.
book, Mushroom
Yeah.
Blues, because that
And-
is a great
Yeah,
book.
you can get my debut novel, Mushroom Blues, if you want some fungal noir. And you can also find me on pretty much everything. There are some platforms that I don't really use that much, but Adrian M. Gibson, you can find me all over the place. Or my website, adrianmgibson.com.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the
Love
pod.
it.
We
Thanks so
we
much.
can't wait to have you guys back for Desperate Housewives.
I've never watched it, so I got to catch up.
Oh, you have like what, 12 seasons or
Oh
something?
my gosh,
crazy?
it was on for far too. It was
I'm
on
sure.
so
I'm sure
forever.
if I pitched my wife on watching it, she'd probably be down.
It jumped like 7 sharks before it finally got
There
canceled.
were so many shows that I realized, like in high school, I would continue watching them, and at some point, I was like, "Oh, this is bad now," and I would like stop watching, and it was never that good, but it had gotten too bad. Desperate
Yeah, like,
Housewives
it-
was one
it
of
got
them.
Too crazy. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
end up finishing that show either, but I
No,
did watch several of the early seasons.
I remember
yeah.
there was a time jump, and it was like, "Why are we still doing this?" It's like, how are we here? So yeah, we could do that, or a more normal Kyle MacLachlan joint.
Yeah.
We could cover the Kyle
Kyle
MacLachlan
MacLachlan has
Dune
to be in it.
movies.
Yeah, he has
Yeah.
to be in it. That's just the rule.
We can do Twin Peaks, or we can do Dune. I would
Uh,
love to talk about David Lynch's Dune with all of you because that movie is
Yeah.
fucking bonkers. It's so good.
I have pitched to Laura that we should cover that Dune. So, because Laura loves the Dune franchise, and I
Okay.
do a thing where when someone loves something a lot, I try to like level them out. Where I'm like, "Isn't that great?" So it started out with her being like, "I kind of like this," and me being like, "It was fine, like it's okay." And now it's grown into Laura being like, "This is a part of my personality," and I'm like, "Well, I hated it," and that is not the energies we started off
The
with.
more I
I
grew
love
to
it.
like
There's
it,
like the
Hannah
same
grew to
level
hate
of
it.
energy,
Yeah.
and as she goes up, you
But
have
on like
to
one
go
hand,
down.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
passion for spite.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you must
that's
match.
I made my
specifically what
profile picture
happened.
me holding Dune, and then later Hannah was like, "I'm throwing this book in the garbage." And I was like, "What?"
I'm gonna light it on fire and
Yeah.
bury it in sand.
That actually did not happen, but it is a running joke now where people have been like, I kind of want to have Hannah read Dune because I think it would be funny. And I'm like, I don't think we could survive that. So
The podcast would end.
but
Right,
that's
our friendship.
Well, at least Laura has an ally on her side. So
yeah, see,
I'm here
yeah.
for you. I'm here for you,
That's
girl.
it's my youngest sibling nature. Recently on the
you.
podcast, someone said something about like, oh well, Laura, you haven't seen Mad Max. You got to watch it. It's amazing. And like everyone had been really hyping up the new Mad Max one. And I was like, I mean, I remember loving it, but it's just fine. Like, so I do it with everything where if people love it too much, I'm like, can we all calm down about
You're like,
this
everybody
one topic?
relax, okay?
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's just Mad Max. Like,
Chocolate is actually just mediocre. I don't know why people want it on every dessert.
that is an insane statement, and I would never say
Oh
it.
my
But thank you so much. I'm sorry it went off the rails just now, but thank
Tone
you
it
guys
down.
again.
Tone it
Thanks,
down.
Adrian.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
everyone. Go
Thank you
support their
guys.
podcast. We know Laura's husband will be doing that.
Yes.
Shout out to him.
And make sure you're getting their books.
Pick
And
up
you
their
can
books everywhere.
And you can follow us on all the social platforms at OWWR Pod. We're everywhere, or you can check us out at ourpod.com and stay tuned tomorrow for our regular programming as I'm sure, are going back into Dresden if we're not on a bonus episode.
We
So
are covering lots of Dresden.
Garage.
it's so much, yeah. Stupid 6-car garage.
I'm gonna email Jim. Like, get-
All the
Let him
tapestry.
know.
yeah.
All the tapestry in this.
Actually, MJ,
24-year-old
you're gonna
man.
see him. You're gonna see him in August, so you can tell him.
Oh,
I'll
exciting.
tell him. Okay, I'll let
Yeah.
him know.
Please don't
Yeah.
tell him that.
Please no.
I'm gonna ruin Ronnie's launch live stream and just berate Jim about
Be
a
like, by the
garage.
way.
Did you know that your Chicago
Right?
stuff, like, how could you get to O'Hare in 15 minutes? Hannah told me that that's unrealistic.
I know your main
No.
character is
no
a
way.
wizard, but this is bullshit.
This is the pressing issue here.
No. We love you, Jim. Sorry.
You're like, I didn't mean it.
Especially if Adrian tattles on me. I did not mean it.
Your secret is safe with us and all of your listeners.
Oh my God.
I'm
I'm gonna tag Jim in this. Don't worry.
Biggest fear is that he'll listen to our podcast.
We have very joking energy, so
Right? I love it. I love it.
All
God.
right. Well, we will go back to that, and we'll have to have you guys on again real soon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.